All right. This is a very special episode, people.
Love it.
This is like a combo industrialist, confessions of a street broker. This man he's pretty much been my brother since I was 12.
12.
Mm-hmm. He's probably the most caring person I've ever met. He's probably the most avid lover of Diet Coke, dip, and Serrano peppers I've ever met.
That is correct.
Soup also. Big fan of the soup.
Absolutely. Even when it's hot outside.
Even when it's hot. Doesn't matter. Oh, Tom Ling, Mercer Company sales manager. And I just like to call you the cheerleader because you just fire everybody up.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. So I want to start with one thing.
Okay.
Do you know why this show's named The Industrialist?
Because Bella and I were challenged with the task.
No, I remember when we were in the Mercer Metals days, you said one day, you should just put on your card an industrialist.
Oh, okay. That's how the name.
That's how I got the name for this. So you came up with the name for this platform. So
Got it.
So I always thought that was cool. So to even back into that more.
Right.
When we were selecting music for it, I lean towards your love of Nine Inch Nails, and all of our intro and outro music is Nine Inch Nails from the Ghost albums because they actually let you use that music without having to pay for it.
No kidding.
So all the music for our podcast is Nine Inch Nails.
So hats off to Trent Reznor.
Hats off to Trent Reznor.
That's awesome.
One of the greatest.
You know that Nine Inch Nails filled Jeff and I's dormitory room almost every night when we would come back.
Oh, so good.
And we had this carousel. It was a 5 CD carousel, and we'd have U2 in there, Nine Inch Nails, Metallica.
Yeah. And
you could go through there and select it, and then we'd turn the lights out, and we'd turn the music on, and we'd sit there and just talk about life. That gets back. And we actually, what was really funny, this predates cell phones. We had a telephone in our dorm room, and on that we had an answering machine. And we actually had a Nine Inch Nails song playing in the background. Yeah. And Jeff did this really funny voice. Leave me a message. Obviously, it's kind of followed in with the students at Rice. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think this is probably going to turn out to be one of my biggest regrets is when I've never seen Nine Inch Nails in concert. Yeah. And Tammany bought me tickets for Father's Day in 2018, tickets to go see Nine Inch Nails. So Father's Day is in June. The concert's in November. Well, in November, I'm in the throes of selling Mercer Metals.
Right.
I'm up every night making sure everything's ready for the audits and all this stuff. And I got to the time to go to the concert, and I was so gassed, and I didn't go. And it's like one of the biggest things I regret.
Yeah.
Just not doing, because I don't know if he's ever going to tour again.
Well, we were talking about, I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
And going through that process, and you call me up, I'm like, I just can't, I don't think I can make it. And you were dealing with such a mess at that point.
Yeah.
But you persevered, and look where you're at today.
Well, that's a pretty interesting story, which we'll get into.
Sure.
Because that was you were very instrumental in that too.
Yeah.
But let's kind of start from the beginning of how did you tell the story of how you and Jeff met, and like when was the first time y'all met and y'all instantly fell in love with each other?
Right. Yeah. So to give the listeners kind of a background, I was playing football at Arlington Lamar for Eddie Peach was a head coach, and I.C. Little was the defensive coordinator. I was a nose tackle, so I always looked at I.C. Little as my coach. It was very interesting how they ran that program. It was a very successful football program. But I.C. Little was such an incredible coach, and he was my coach. I didn't interact with Eddie very much. So playing football at Arlington Lamar, Jeff and I actually faced each other in the regional playoffs.
You put Irving High you put Jeff out of the playoffs.
We did. And what's interesting, there's a pretty good YouTube video for the 1990 Lamar Vikings that has both Jeff and I covered in it during that game. Wow. And you can see Jeff's jersey, number 60, Mercer, on the back. And then, so anyways, Jeff was playing for Irving. I was playing for Arlington Lamar. We went all the way to the state championship game and lost to Houston Aldine. Yeah. I believe they were ranked in 2 different polls, 1 or 2 in the nation. They had an incredible football team. And after that, we started getting recruited, right? Well, during that process, the recruiting's a lot different today than it was back then. I think student athletes know a lot more about the recruiting process than Jeff and I did.
I think parents know a lot more too, right? I feel like our parents really had no clue. What was going on. It's just like, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, you go to your locker, and you see your helmet and your shoulder pads there, and there's just stacks and stacks of letters, right? It
is a questionnaire. They give you a little questionnaire you'd fill out and send it back to them.
But no one said anything to you about it. You got all this mail, and and that's one of the things. You kind of reflect back. If I was to make any changes, and the simple answer is no. Yeah. I had several visits set up. Jeff did too. Rice was the first visit that he and I both took. Mm-hmm.
And for everybody to understand, you and Jeff don't know each other.
Don't know each other. Correct. Yeah. Correct. And I don't remember during this process, I think it was after we both committed, that Coach Burns, Keith Burns,
that guy was an incredible recruiter.
He was. Yeah. He was, that old adage, I could sell ice to an Eskimo.
That guy could do it.
And what we didn't know is you were so sold on the program because Keith Burns was an incredible recruiter. You were like, well, if he's a reflection of the program, then I'm in. Mm-hmm. And so anyways, they coordinate Jeff and I to go to a Texas Rangers baseball game. And this is in the old field. Yeah. And
the old field.
The old
They're
field.
on their third field now. This is, that field's no longer standing.
Right. Yeah. And back then, I want to say in 1990, Rice had an endowment of close to $4 billion. And they get us tickets in the outfield at the very top. So I don't even know if they paid for them.
No, probably not. This shows how much they care about sports.
So Jeff and I meet up, and the game goes like 14 innings. The Rangers lose. It's like 2-1. It might have been 1-0. And we're sitting there for 4 hours. And as we're walking out of the stadium, we had 4 hours of just wonderful conversations. And that's kind of when I when you meet somebody and you're like, this person is so dialed into who I am, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And I remember putting my arm around him, and just as we're walking out, I'm a very touchy-feely human being, right? Just caring, and like you said earlier, caring and being, just showing that compassion. And he looked at me and he goes, this is the last baseball game I'm ever going to go to. And at that point, I knew that Jeff and I would be best friends and brothers for life. So,
man, I swear, so many people email me lately. Oh, hey, we got a suite at the Rangers game. I'm like, no interest, like none. Like, baseball's just not for me either. They've done a good job speeding up the game.
Well, and to that point, I want to say to my listeners, and especially the agents that I work with, Keenan, I love you. Kim, I love you. And Tucker Mauser, I love you. Yeah. Those are our baseball players.
Playing baseball is fun. Watching it, for me, not so much. Do you remember there was a Simpsons episode where Homer quit drinking?
Okay.
And he was watching a baseball game. He goes, how did I ever watch this?
That's so what he quit drinking for one episode.
Yeah. He's like, quit drinking beer. And he's like, how did I ever watch this?
God, that sounds like the story of my life. Is that a One Direction song? Yeah. Give it up for a day and be like, oh, what's going on here?
So, okay. So you and Jeff, y'all are like, let's be roommates at that point, right?
That's it. Yeah. And then the recruiting process, here you are, 17 years old. You don't have your parents with you. You're sitting in front of the head coach. At that time, it was Fred Goldsmith, formerly was the head coach, I believe, of the Air Force. And you're just you walk the campus and everything looks beautiful. And I had a good friend of mine who also I played football with. His name was Chris Sine. Uh-huh. He was my mentor, nose tackle in football, and he went to Rice. And I thought to myself, well, if Chris went to Rice, I should go to Rice. But during the recruiting process, while we were there, Chris was like, "You don't want to come here." Yeah. Yeah. But well, here's what happened. I'm sitting in Fred Goldsmith's office, and he reaches into his desk and he hands me this like gold coin. It wasn't gold, but maybe it was bronze or whatever. And it was a coin of Mack trucks, and he gave a little story about the history of Mack trucks. And then he looked at me and he said, "Tommy, if you don't accept this scholarship now, we're not going to have one for you." Because he knew I had other visits set up. Yeah. And, that's something interesting I haven't talked to Jeff about. I don't know if he got the same spill. Yeah. And here you are at 17 going, well, if what happens if I don't say yes? Mm-hmm. So he really pigeonholed me into saying yes. But it also, in the same breath, the decision was, could my parents make it to my games?
Yeah, proximity.
And at that time, I'm the second oldest of 4 children. I have an older sister and 2 younger brothers. And at that time, we were living with my grandmother. My mom was teaching in Dallas off of Singleton. It's Thomas Edison Science Academy. And my dad was in and out of jobs. Yeah. And, doing hourly work. So there wasn't, I was thinking about, okay, can they even afford to make it to Houston to come see me play when I get a starting position? Mm-hmm. And, even though that's a 3.5 hour drive, that was weighing heavy on my decision as well. Yeah. Because the other schools that I had visits set up to were out of state. Yeah. So that's kind of, as I reflect back on that decision,
that was a big factor.
It was a big factor. Yeah. And then, obviously, after meeting Jeff, I was like, I don't want to not go to a school and not play football with Jeff. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
And that was just from that 4 hours of sitting there at the Texas Rangers old stadium.
That's crazy. So you said something, and this will kind of take us on a little tangent, but I want to talk about it, especially because what's going on in our nation right now.
Right.
So Chris Sine, he had a brother, Matt.
Correct.
And I used to sit next to Matt at the games and stuff. Mm-hmm. Every now and then I wasn't great friends with him or anything, but he was a pretty highly touted recruit. He played at Alabama.
I misspoke. It was Matt Sine.
Oh, Matt Sine. Yeah,
his brother
Chris.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's been a long time.
Okay, sorry. Chris was Matt's younger brother. Right. Chris played at Lamar. Chris ended up going to play at Alabama.
Right.
Chris ended up becoming a reporter in Alabama. And the conspiracy theory is that the Clintons killed him. That's the conspiracy.
Yeah.
He was doing a lot of reporting on them, and all the you can look up that's wild to think like the people are trying to kill Trump right now and all that stuff. I don't know. I just remember when that happened, I was like, I used to sit with that guy every Saturday and say hi to his parents, and it was like,
well, he broke the story. He was in Arizona, and it's when Bill Clinton landed on the tarmac, and I believe it was Loretta Lynch.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was it was all those things, and the way people made it sound is he got Clintoned. So,
well, he wrote the book, right? Mm-hmm. Then he moves back to Alabama. Yeah. And then I guess Monday evening, he's found in his chair after attending his boys' softball game, which is, I've given that, I know that whole story. It's painful, and because it's such a great family. I used to go over to their house, and they had a little Datsun. So here you got Bobby Sine, who's like 6'4", 300 pounds. You have Matt Sign, nose tackle for Rice. And then you have
Matt was really small.
He was, but man, what an athlete.
Yeah, no, he was, but he was like 5'10".
Yeah.
But he was like 280 or something. But
I think his playing weight was probably around 230 to 240.
Yeah.
But he was so powerful. Yeah. He had the genetics. His dad played for the Dolphins, offense lineman. But I used to go over to their house, and they had, I don't know, 4 or 5 dogs. But the one dog that really stands out is a little male Dotson, miniature Dotson, and his name was Axe. And Axe ran the house.
Yeah.
And we used to go over there and hang out. But Bobby and Matt and Chris, just wonderful people.
Yeah.
And it's such a tragedy.
Well, it's just crazy with all the things going on with people. Like, I mean, this is a second attempt on Trump. Like, someone's behind something.
Sure.
Right? So,
sure.
Okay. Sorry to derail us, but
no,
that was
that's
just
a good story.
It's a very interesting story.
Sure.
And timely for where we're at in the world right now. But, okay. So you and Jeff room together.
Right.
Go.
Okay. So I describe Rice University. It's a beautiful campus, but imagine a massive Tupperware bowl, and you just turned 18 years old, and you know when you run a Tupperware bowl through the dishwasher, sometimes the lid doesn't close. Well, this was a brand new lid, so you were basically trapped.
Yeah.
I didn't have a car. Obviously, I also qualified for a Pell Grant.
Yeah,
and I got $800 per semester. In that money, so when you just start talking about NIL money and things like that, I have an opinion on that. I'm sure maybe some of your listeners won't agree with my opinion, but $800 in 1991 didn't go very far.
Yeah,
for a semester, you buy clothes, toothpaste, deodorant, things like that. Because again, you got 3 siblings, father in and out of jobs, mom on a $35,000 a year salary with DISD, and living with grandma in Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
So, what ended up happening is they put us in Lovett College. So Rice has co-ed dorms, basically. They call them colleges. And Jeff and I were on the 4th floor, and this building was built during the riots of the 1960s. So it had this horribly looking architectural design to it. Concrete cinder block.
Looked like a prison.
It did. And our room was essentially a prison. However, within those walls, one of the greatest friendships in the world has been created, because as I'm looking at you across this table, and I think about the pain and the struggles and our life experiences within that 1 year, I can proudly say that you're not friends to me. You're my brothers.
Yeah. Well, my kids call you their uncle.
Right. Uncle Tom. Yes. So, and, for your listeners too, I've had more Thanksgiving meals with Jeremy and his family, including Bob and Myrna and Jeff and Christy, than I have with my own. And I'm not saying that to say I don't love my family, but I love Jeff and Jeremy and their family just as much. And I'll kind of take a deep dive into that here in just a second.
Well, and let's just clarify, your brother Jeff is allergic to stepping across the Temple County line, the Belton County line. He can't there's like a force field up. He gets to the end of it.
Right. So for the listeners, Jeff Mercer, Jeff Ling, my middle brother, and Jeremy
we're best friends.
Best friends. Yeah. I mean, these guys do deals together. They're out hustling commercial real estate all the time. And, what's interesting is we never drifted apart, right? Sometimes you meet people and you kind of drift apart, but the relationship that we share with your family, including your mom and dad, are forever.
Yeah.
And and I can tell you this, Myrna, that's Jeff and Jeremy's mom. She's truly the only other woman on this planet that has loved me like my own mom.
Yeah.
So, this shirt that I'm wearing today is, and if you're watching this, this shirt was given to me in 1991 by Jeremy Mercer at Lovett College with a matching pair of socks. And this shirt has moved, I don't know how many times we've moved. Isabella's sitting over here to my left. She's, poor thing. We're constantly moving houses and stuff, but this shirt has made it through every move.
Yeah.
So going back to the dorm room, it was bunk beds.
Yep.
And imagine a prison cell. That's what it looked like. It's all concrete. We had suite mates across the hallway, but there's a shared bathroom, not across the hallway. But Jeff and I created this, our own little world, if you will, of our regiment, wake up in the morning, go to football practice, go to school, go to classes, come back, drop your stuff off, go back to football practice, come back, go to the mess hall and eat. And all they fed us was lasagna. So I went from 240 to 265 in that short period of time. And they put me on the basically the fat squad, and they shipped us to a different mess hall that was just salad and grilled chicken, and it was disgusting. So, and they were like, "Well, Ling, you need to lose weight," and I'm like, "Well, quit feeding me lasagna." So when I would go home, my mom would say, "Honey, what can I make you?" And I said, "Anything but lasagna." So even to this day,
yeah.
So, but what's interesting, the things that Jeff and I share is we have a love for music. And, Jeff is very analytical, super smart. But he's got this love that he gives to others it's unmeasurable. And you won't see that maybe during a real estate transaction, or, he's tough, which I love about him. He's got thick skin, but when you crack open you peel back that onion, there's a person inside of there that's so compassionate and so kind. And that's what I needed at that time. Because as you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, how, I'm an emotional person. When I say I love the agents I work with, they're my boys. Yeah. They're like my biological sons.
Yeah. And
I treat each and every one of them with that level of compassion. So it was tough. Rice is a difficult campus as an athlete, because you're on at that time there was, I want to say 2,200 students when we went through matriculation, 38,000 graduates at that time in 1990. So very few people have ever walked that campus or graduated from that campus. And when you're on campus with, the savants of the world, the Mensa people, it's my freshman English class. There was 11 students in it. Teacher just asked, "How many of you graduated valedictorian?" Take a guess. 10 of them. 10 of them raised their hands. And then she hands the class syllabus, and we'll touch on this at the end of the podcast, but she gave the class syllabus, and she's like, there's like 5 books, and each book was like 300 pages long. And I'm sitting here, how can I take 4 other classes, go to football, come home to the dorm room, or come back to the dorm room, and at 8 o'clock after I've, had dinner, and read, and that's just one class, read 100 pages. I'm like, that's just, and that's one thing about student athletes that play at D1 programs is it's a job. Let's just call it, it's a total job.
Yeah.
And to balance that, the education along with football, hats off to those guys that that have gone to school and have got engineering degrees, like Chris Cooley. He was an offensive lineman at Rice that Jeff and I played with. People that are so structured and so intelligent at a campus like Rice and can muster through and not end up with a made-up kinesiology degree.
Right.
So obviously so you can't, as I described the campus, it was a Tupperware Bowl. It was very hard to get out. You're 18 years old at the time. Can't really, there's not a bar scene really to go to. There's no dance halls.
It's not a real college life. You're sitting in the middle of just an industrial town.
Yeah.
At an educational institution, not a college, really.
Yeah. No, and for athletes, it's kind of difficult because you want that, right? You yearn for that. You want to
blow off some steam.
You do.
Yeah.
So the only thing that Jeff and I could really do was play Super Tecmo Bowl, watch The Simpsons, but we also had the roast table. So Jeff and I ran the roast table. Here we are, redshirt freshmen. There's a table that sits 8 athletes, and we would invite them over and have them sit with us while we're eating dinner, and we would absolutely berate them. and God forbid if we met your parents. It's over. It's over. In fact, I want to say that was our way of really having some kind of fun on campus was that roast table.
Yeah. And
sure enough, the spring semester of our redshirt freshman year, no one would sit with us. We actually pissed some people off so much we lost complete communication with them. So we went into this. Baker was a nice dorm on campus, or quote unquote college, much nicer than Lovett. And the guy's first name is Chris. I can't think of his last name. He played for Fort Worth.
Thomason.
Yeah, Chris Thomason played for Fort Worth Christian Day. And Jeff and I went into his dorm room, and he had this bag of bagel chips. And we ate all of them. And he looked at us like we had just murdered his family. And that really, I'm seriously, the roast table, eating the bagel chips, and it's just like, okay. I was looking at Jeff, and I was like, we're not going to have any friends by the time we leave here. I mean, we're
just harassing everyone.
Just super sarcastic. But it was a lot of fun. So that's what we did. There's really no opportunity for us to ever. Oh, we did take a road trip to TCU.
Yeah.
And we ended up walking through a girls' dormitory, and this was on a Saturday morning, and these girls our age are walking down the hallway. Some of them, they had a shower, where they community shower.
Yeah.
Some are wrapped in towels, have towels wrapped on their heads, and Jeff and I are looking at each other, and some are running out in their shorts and T-shirts, and we're like, what did we do? There's not even 1-5 on Rice's campus.
No.
So it was tough. You want to play football, you want to get an education, and then you want to meet somebody that you love, right? You want to meet your wife. And
that part of the equation was not going to happen.
No. So, but we survived. I did have a knee injury that was career-ending, and then I'll actually save that for the end. You're going to ask me a question. What is something that no one knows about you? And I'll kind of tell you about that piece, because a lot of people don't know that story.
Well, you said you had some opinions on the NIL. What's your opinion on that?
So, I'm probably the only person in the office that doesn't regularly spectate football, whether that's college or NFL. And it's kind of a joke around the office. But I do think about it quite a bit. I'll catch little clips and stuff and watch final scores. But to answer that question, if I frame this back to 1990 with a mom who's a school teacher supporting 4 children, a dad who's in and out of jobs, and then the decision of I have to stay in Texas because my family will never be able to come see me play because they won't have the means. Mm-hmm. I think it's almost criminal that your parents can't celebrate. You're playing football for them, right? Yeah. You're playing football for people who love you. Mm-hmm. And to think about them never being able to travel because they don't have the means to travel.
Yeah.
I couldn't carry that burden.
Yeah.
So when it gets to paying players, there has to be something, right? I don't know about millions of dollars or whatever, or this UNLV quarterback transferring. UNLV's 3-0, and then all of a sudden he just transfers. I caught that on the news.
Yeah.
And then Jeff was reading the article, and he said, you know what, they guaranteed him $100,000. They didn't pay him, and that's why he left. Well, okay, I can see that. But what also would be very difficult is if you have players on the team that are getting these huge sponsorships, and then there's going to be players who receive nothing.
You're dividing the locker room,
right? You're dividing the locker room. I mean, now you're talking about that Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb salaries, and then you've got guys in there making, a fraction. So
the one thing that I thought Tech has done a good job at is they created their NIL collective, the Matador Club, and it's they've raised enough money to give every football player $25,000 a year. So if you're a walk-on, you get $25,000.
Sure.
And I thought that was great, but the impact of that really resonated with me when a good friend of mine and former teammate of mine at Tech.
Yeah.
He's the D-line coach in Prosper.
Right.
And he's been a coach he played in the NFL for 4 years and then went pretty much right into coaching. And we were driving one night, and his son is a walk-on at Tech now.
Okay.
And when his son was getting recruited, his son Tech didn't have a spot for him. They told him, wait till spring. We'll have a spot after spring, most likely, because someone will transfer out.
Right.
Well, in that interim, A&M offered him a preferred walk-on position, so he went ahead and accepted it. And actually, so my friend, his dad had actually played at A&M, so this would be his my friend's son playing there,
right?
And we were driving. I was like, well, man, A&M, that's not a bad gig for And he goes, yeah, but if he can go to Tech, he gets $25,000. And man, that's meaningful to me. To help pay for college. And, and so he, sure enough, whenever spring happened, he got his shot. He got his offer to walk on at Tech. So he took it, and they called A&M. And A&M's like, well, what happened? He goes, well, Tech has this NIL program where, we pay these players $25,000. And they're like, oh, well, we would have given you money. And it's like, well, he didn't really want to go there anyways, but it was just a great option at the time.
Sure.
And so, but to your point, man, like there's some kids on those teams, they might be walking out of a home life where this is it.
It is.
This is everything.
Sure.
And they have no money. And to your point, it's a job. I mean, I remember someone asked me what my schedule was. I said, well, here's what Monday was during season. We had to be in class at 8 because you had to take morning classes because we practiced in the afternoon.
Right.
So 8 a.m. till 12, I had classes. 12 to 1, we go to the dining hall, have lunch.
Okay.
1 to 3, we lifted.
Okay.
3 to 4:30, we watched film.
Okay.
And then at 5 o'clock, we would have a team meeting for 2 hours almost, it seemed like.
Okay.
And then 7 o'clock, we had practice till 9 p.m.
Right.
And that was Monday.
Right.
To your point, you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, and this is what you're college is about if you're just a college student, it's not a full-time job.
Right.
but it's probably about a 2/3 time job to do a good job, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, playing a Division I sport, or honestly, I don't know if it matters in divisions. I think whoever's playing a sport in college is a minimum of 40 hours a week.
Sure.
On top of that.
Sure.
On top of being physically exhausted from everything. So, and the revenue that football generates and all that. But I still think at the end of the day, man, I think kids should be paid.
Right.
I to your point, I do agree. I don't think they should be getting. I think you need to kind of really
reel it in a little bit.
Reel in a little bit. There's probably going to be some kids that get paid a little more than others, but I mean, I think that's what A&M had the #1 draft class a couple years ago, and then they were absolutely horrible afterwards. And a lot of what I'd heard was the locker room.
Yeah.
Some of these guys getting millions of dollars, they'd show up late.
Sure.
What are you going to do?
Right.
And then there's a kid that got nothing that's like trying to get a shot there. And he's like, who are these guys?
And to your point, when they start, let's say going back to Texas A&M, we moved from that area, from Plantersville, Texas, which is about 45 minutes from Texas A&M's campus. So I know a lot of Texas A&M alumni. And one of the things that I heard, even one that Kyle Megan, who played football at A&M, he didn't say this, but I learned this through Tim Ziblot, whose dad's a vet. And he said that that recruiting class you're talking about, and you talk about the locker room, the alumni, they had like an alumni dinner, and the players were so incredibly rude to the alumni. Like, I don't need to talk to you. Who are you?
Yeah.
So when you think about the history and you think about the legacies of football teams, and then you start throwing in a bunch of money in it, and then you get these big attitudes, and where's the respect, right?
So I think it's like the internet in a way. There's a lot of good things that have come out of having the internet.
Sure.
There's a lot of bad things that have come out of having the internet. So I think A&M experienced a bad situation of what can happen when there's no rules, right? So I think they'll eventually put rules around it. But I think the good thing that's come out of it is that some people can do it right and put a minimum on it for at least something for somebody.
Well, and to further that is what happens when you have a injury and you're going to be drafted into the NFL, and then something happens to you, right? So you tear Achilles, you're on your 3rd or 4th ACL knee, and you've lost your speed and your edge, and you're never going to play football again. So, that's another kind of thought I had. And then we get into the college playoffs, right? So now we're adding more games, more practices, more opportunities for career-ending injuries. And, for the listeners, just take a moment, and when you're watching football, for those who watch college football and NFL, watch that stretcher come out, or watch them carry a player off the field. It may be the last time they ever play.
Yeah.
So I'm not a real big fan of. I like the bowl games. I think we should go back to that. I think the playoffs to generate revenue, right? We're going to add more games, but I also want the listeners to think about every time that young man steps back out on the practice field to prepare for that game or plays through one of those playoff games. It's just another opportunity for them to not be drafted and not get their payday, essentially.
Yeah.
So, that's why I kind of struggle with that. But,
well, I think the one thing the playoffs will do is the bowls are cool, but they're kind of meaningless. At least the playoff system has meaning behind it, because a lot of people have been hurt in a bowl game, which is a total waste of time.
Sure.
Especially if it's not a one of the big four or anything like that. So I think that's the one upside of the playoffs. I think because I look at like Florida State last year, everybody was all down on Florida State because they had like 30 kids not playing the bowl game.
Right.
Well, I didn't, everybody was mad about that. I kind of agreed with the kids. I was kind of like, if I'm a kid and I have the opportunity to go to the NFL,
sure,
and I need to play in some bowl game we did everything y'all told us to do. We went 12-0.
Right.
They literally got punished for their quarterback being hurt.
Right.
But as a kid, I'm like, okay, so I just got punished for this. Now you want me to go play in a bowl game when I'm fixing to go to the NFL, and this is the only shot I have to save my family from
poverty,
whatever poverty that we're in.
No, that's a good point.
So a lot of people are like, oh, y'all didn't have any heart. I'm like, man, you get out there and do it.
But let me throw this at you and get your thoughts on this. Get rid of the playoff system, go back to the bowl. Or do we want college football to follow NFL, or do we want it to just be different, right? So we can have those debates. Who's the best team based on the polls? And it leaves it
will get rid of a lot of media.
Yeah.
I guess it replaces with other, but no.
You know how it's just kind of following suit, right?
Yeah.
We're watching college football to watch college football, not to watch NFL football.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I don't know. Every other college football thing follows a playoff system. I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting. The bowls will still be there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But to sum it all up, I think players should be played.
Yeah.
Players should be paid.
I'm dyslexic. That made perfect sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you hurt your knee. That ended up kind of changing your trajectory with Rice and everything. So,
it did.
So what was next after that?
Anyways, and like I said it earlier, I'll save it for the last piece. But so here I am. I'm limping around. Your brother's providing care for me. I'm in traction for 6 weeks. Laying down in bed, hooked up to a machine that keeps my knee moving even while I'm sleeping. It took me about 4 months after the surgery, maybe 6, to where I could walk without limping.
Yeah.
Obviously, surgeries have changed and dramatically.
Yeah.
And I was super depressed.
Yeah.
Here I am. I've got my best friend for life as a roommate. I can't play football anymore. They said, well, you can stay here and we'll put you on film team. I'm like, why would I hold a scholarship away from this program that you could give to somebody else to make this team better?
Yeah.
Instead of thinking about me, thinking about what's Jeff going to go through?
Yeah.
If they don't have if I hold that scholarship away. So I made that tough decision to say, I'm going to hang my helmet up and I'm going to go back home.
Yeah.
And going back home, it didn't have any opportunities, right? So, we had one family car. Driving, my first job was working at a wash bay at A1 Rentals on Division, power washing heavy equipment. And then, but it was just that when you have very little, the only thing you can do is work hard to get more. So I was at the bottom.
Yeah.
And at that time, I just needed somebody to fill this huge void. And God provided that to me. And shortly after coming back from Rice, I enrolled at UTA and I meet my wife.
Okay.
It's a funny story. Nicholas, my youngest brother, is out in the front yard. He has a G.I. Joe aircraft carrier that he has poured napalm on. I taught Jeffrey and Nicholas, you take styrofoam and soak it in gas, and essentially that's napalm. So as Heather's pulling up to pick me up because I don't have a car, Nick's burning the G.I. Joe boat. Jeffrey answers the door. I'm in the back bathroom. Jeffrey comes running full speed. He goes, Tommy, the finest girl in the world is outside waiting for you. Well, the girl who was supposed to pick me up was a girl named Jenny Reich, but Jenny was living with Heather Carlisle, my wife, at the time. And Jenny said, I'm going to go pick up Tommy Ling at his house. Well, I didn't know that Heather Carlisle would drive past my house in high school because we went to high school together. And I just remember opening up that screen door and I was like, oh my God. It just took my breath away. And we ended up going to Billy Bob's that night. And, we were trying to get reconnected. And it was, there's some funny stories in between that as far as us dating in the beginning. She played hard to get and it was very painful. But ultimately I ended up with 4 beautiful children.
Yeah.
My oldest sitting here to my left. And God provided that answer to me.
Yeah.
But I still, in all of that, miss Jeff.
Yeah.
Because I have a girlfriend, but my best friend's in Houston, and I'm not going to be able to experience the next 3 years with him.
Yeah.
And again, we always stayed connected. A lot of it was through mail, like writing letters and stuff back and forth too. He saved some of that, It's so interesting for the listeners, those young guys out there that have cell phones and all these different apps, Snapchat and text messaging and Instagram. Spell check came out in college. That's why I passed.
Yeah.
That's why I was able to graduate, because of spell check.
Now you have Chat GPT.
Thank you, technology. Right. So, but yeah, so that's, so then I enroll at UTA. My dad was a general contractor leading up to this. And, I'm originally from the Valley, grew up in Brownsville. I say grew up in Brownsville, Texas from birth to the age of 10, lived in Brownsville. In the 5th grade, we moved to San Antonio. So it's kind of interesting as you look at the whole dynamics of what we sell.
Yeah.
Tilt wall buildings. My dad was one of the first tilt wall contractors in the Valley, building, tilt wall distribution centers for companies like Tandy Corporation, Sunbeam, Fisher Price Toys. And as a young kid, I got to see all of that. But, what it taught me was we had a very good life up to 1987. Mm-hmm. And then that's when the savings and loans crash happened. And my dad was an entrepreneur, developer, general contractor. He did everything in-house. He had his own electricians, plumbers, welders. And at one time, he had 120 employees. Ugh. And then in 1987, it just stopped. And we went from living in a nice house in San Antonio to living in a motel, M, not H, in Seguin, Texas. So here I am, what am I, 14, 15 years old, living in a motel with my parents. And that's when we grandma, so that's my mom's mom. My grandfather, who was an internist, went to Georgetown, moved to Alvarado first, and then set his practice up in Arlington. My dad actually built this huge 5,000 square foot house that you've been into multiple times as you were growing up. And we moved in with grandma.
Yeah.
And
I lived there every weekend pretty much.
Yeah. Nothing was more shocking from going to an inner city San Antonio school to walking over the bridge to walking to school. And as the first day as a sophomore at Arlington Lamar, what do I see coming into the parking lot? Brand new 944 Porsches, Mustangs, brand new Jeeps. And I'm like, what have my parents got me into? So, but anyways, yeah, Arlington was great. The experience at Lamar, the coaching, it was the complete opposite of coaching at Rice. Eddie Peach, that's one thing I will tell you. He was big on limiting contact, physical conditioning, stretching. Practice was actually enjoyable. And then you go to Rice and they have 3-a-days. Like, why are we even leaving? Like, you tell us to go leave for a couple hours. We're going to be right back out here.
Yeah.
I would lose about 20 pounds for practice.
Yeah.
In the summer.
I remember Jeff talking about that.
And that's when...
so hot down there.
It's just miserable. I remember the first day, it's almost like boot camp, right? They throw your helmet at you, they throw your shoulder pads. And they didn't even give us enough time to adjust our equipment to fit our bodies. and my shoulder pad straps were so tight, it kept my diaphragm from expanding out. Yeah. And we're running out on the field. So now you have all this anxiety. You're playing college football. It's your first day, 3 days. And I just remember having this thought, I'm going to die. My shoulder pads are going to suffocate me. Yeah. You know, so when you look at coaching as a whole and you look at your experiences, there's something to be said about really good coaching. And I got that at Arlington Lamar.
Coaches make a massive impact. So certain coaches can make a massive impact in kids' lives. Uh-huh. And, you know, that's what, I'm very happy that, you know, like one of Barrett's, his linebacker coach right now is that kind of guy.
Sure.
That'll make that kind of impact in his life.
Sure.
And I've had those coaches too. And it wasn't my college coach, you know.
Right.
They're somewhat almost transient relationships.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
But yeah, coaching is especially at the high school level, I think I think people that coach at the high school level really have a genuine
impact.
Yeah. They want to have a real impact on kids.
Right.
And that's a great place to do it, you know.
Sure. And that can go both ways.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure a lot of the listeners have played football and they've had experiences with both great coaches and terrible coaches.
Sure.
So
you get out of UTA.
Right.
What do you start doing?
So here's kind of what I was always had an interest in geography and history and the impact of civilization on the earth. So my first thought was getting an environmental science degree is I wanted to start recycling when recycling wasn't even talked about. So I get this internship for waste management at the Mesquite landfill in Dallas. And I meet the landfill manager and I'm looking out at probably 2 or 3 miles of garbage trucks waiting to come in and dump. He asked me, he goes, "What's your motivation? Why are you here?" And I said, "I want to start a recycling program." And he laughed at me, slapped me on the back. He said, "Son, you see that line of trucks out there?" He said, "Good luck." And so anyways, that was kind of something that it was short-lived, but it's kind of full circle too of my career and what I ended up doing later in my career.
Yeah.
So after that, I started my own construction company. When I say construction company, you're looking at them. It was just me. Passed out flyers to the church. You know, here I am, 22 years old, 23 years old, and drove an old Volkswagen van, ripped all the seats out.
I remember that van.
Yeah, there's a picture. There's a picture of you in front of it.
Yeah.
And, I got my arm around Jeff. You're standing there, and that's been on our refrigerator. I don't know where it's at right now, but I'm sure we can find it. And so I started my own construction company. I was like, I want to work for myself. I love working with my hands. I love framing, welding, doing trim carpentry work, building manels for people. And that carried me to the point of growing into TxDOT work.
Okay.
So, and when I say TxDOT work, our first few projects were remodeling roadside parks, whether that's replacing barbecue pits or those prison-style picnic tables that are made out of bar grating, 3/16 plate.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got specialized into doing erosion control. So around bridges, and there's parts of Texas where the soil's really unstable. So that was kind of our niche. And then we had another niche was fixing bridges that were hit by oversized loads. So you guys the listeners probably seen the videos of trucks with an excavator on it and it's pinned under a bridge.
Yeah.
And it's knocked out part of the concrete beams, and we would go in there and fix that.
Yeah.
So, but the interesting thing about TxDOT is they didn't grade your work. So leading up to 2006, I started seeing those rumblings in the economy, right?
Okay.
More people started bidding projects. typically on a bid for those types of projects, there would be 3 or 4 bidders. And all of a sudden in late 2006, I was like, why is there 15 people bidding on this job? Why are they awarding it to Janitorial Supply out of Corpus Christi, Texas, on doing a fairly complex carbon fiber wrap, loading down the bridge beam, and they're going and their bid was 30% under the engineering's budget. I'm like, it just didn't. So anyways, we went for a long period of time. I think we went 3 months without having any work. Ugh. And I'm paying my employees, and then all of a sudden we're like, we're going to have to really sharpen our pencil. Yeah. And we bid on 4 jobs on one day. We're awarded all 4 of them. And that next week, all the district engineers called us and said, when can you start? And I was thinking to myself, we don't have enough people. Yeah. I can't cut myself into 4. Yeah. So we had a job in Carthage. We had a job in Sonora, a job in Junction, and a job in Greenville. All at the same time.
Like all over the state.
Yeah. So basically almost killed myself doing that. And then after we completed those jobs, we had to bid them so cheap or under budget. I was like, we can't continue to do this. The company's not going to function. Yeah. So then 07 hits, and everybody says 08. I knew it was coming in 07. I was like, I have to get a job. I have to go work for somebody. Yeah. And it's the first time I'd ever sat down at a computer and sent an email out. So it was a Sunday night. It was in Troy, Texas, out on that property we owned. Uh-huh. And I go to my shop. We had 50 acres, so I had my shop and all my equipment there. And I get online for the first time, and I'm typing in, salesperson job, Austin, Temple, Texas, and up pops this job opening for Atlas Copco construction tools. And I didn't really know much about Atlas Copco. I knew they built air compressors, but it was a hydraulic attachment salesperson for a company-owned store. Atlas Copco is a Swedish-based company. I think they have around 30,000 employees, and just a fantastic company. Great insurance, great benefits. So I fill out the application, and at that time we had no work. I had 3 kids, 1 on the way, and we were literally at the point where it's like, if you drive into town, you better have a purpose, right? Yeah. Don't just spend fuel to spend fuel. So it was a very, very tough financial time for us. I just try to delete 2007, 8, and 9 from my mind. And so long story short, I get a phone call from Jeff Malarick, VP of sales for Atlas Copco Hydraulic Construction Tools. And he says, well, he goes, looking at your resume, and he goes, you don't have any sales experience. And I said, Jeff, I disagree with you. I said, I've had to sell myself on every single project that I've done, whether I was working for an individual or was working for the state. So he flies in to Austin. So I drive from basically Temple down to Austin, meet him, and we have dinner at a Chili's. And I think a couple of days had passed. So he came down on a Monday. I think it was Wednesday, if I remember correctly. I'm actually painting my parents' neighbor's house, who's a widow. Her husband just died. She didn't have the money to pay me to do the work, so we bartered for tools. She goes, I don't have any sons. He's got tools out there. You go take whatever you want. You paint my house. You paint the inside of my house. I'll give you the tools. So I'm in there and I'm rolling the walls. And I'm looking. My phone starts ringing. And I'm like, I pick it up. Hey, Tom, this is Jeff Malarick. I was like, hey, Jeff. He goes, hey, I got some good news for you. I said, what's that? He said, I want to offer you the job. And I mean, just like this. The room was filled with the Holy Spirit, right? He said, we're going to pay $80,000 a year. I was like, oh, God, keep talking. We're going to give you an $800 a month truck allowance, and you get a company credit card for all your expenses. But you have to travel. I was like, when do I start? And he goes, you can start as soon as you want. And so that was that was another just opportunity. And I remember running. Heather was at my mom and dad's house next door. She had Isabella, Thomas. Natalie was just an infant baby. And I just come running over there and I just hold her in my arms. I'm like, honey, God answered our prayer.
Yeah.
Atlas Copco just offered that job to me. And it was great. And that plus I got paid commission. So, back in 2007, 8, we were able to survive on that.
Yeah.
Great insurance. Pierce was paid for.
Yeah.
Like his birth.
Yeah.
Our insurance was our joke was, did Atlas Copco write us a check for having a kid? Swedish insurance, right?
Yeah.
So that lasted for roughly about 4 years.
Yeah.
And then a German company, and let me tell you about Atlas Copco. So what I was selling was massive hydraulic hammers that attach to excavators that either break up when you're driving down the highway and you see an excavator with a huge hammer on it, it's breaking up the highway pavement. Or if you're ever on an airplane and you look out and you see huge excavators breaking up the tarmac. Most of these hammers went on machines that weighed over 100,000 pounds and operated in quarries. And I worked with some really good guys and still friends today. Charlie Odell, Keith Becker. And then Liebherr, I'm actually at a trade show. And Liebherr's a German company. For your listeners, it's very similar to Caterpillar, John Deere, heavy construction equipment. Liebherr's the Caterpillar of Europe. And I heard, hey, Liebherr's going to open up a company-owned store in Houston. I was like, And they also sold Atlas Copco hammers to their company-owned stores throughout the United States. I was like, that's a pretty good synergy there. Maybe they could become my Houston dealer. Even though I sold direct, I was the only salesman in the U.S. that sold directly to the customer.
Okay.
And so, anyways, Liebherr calls me up and says, "Hey, we want to hire you." And I said, "Well, I want you to carry my product, Atlas Copco product." Like I said, we had really good market share at that time. I mean, the guys I worked with, we did everything together. We went out, installed the hammers, did everything, and I was thinking about it. No one knows Liebherr earth moving equipment. So Thomas Schubert, who's from Austria, who's my manager, said, "What is it going to take for us to hire you?" And I said, "You know what? Bring on your scrap line of equipment. Bring on your material handlers, your solid tire wheel loaders, and then call me." Well, I get a call about a month later, and Liebherr had a national agreement with a company called Republic Crane to distribute all their scrap handling equipment. And I get a call from Jeff Wilson, who's another mentor. So we had Jeff Malarick, now Jeff Wilson. And Jeff said, "Hey, I just want to talk to you over the phone. Give me a little bit of background." So I gave him my background. He tells Thomas Schubert, the Liebherr Houston store is good to go on being one of our distributors for the material handlers. And then that opened up this incredible opportunity for me to sell both Atlas Copco direct and Liebherr direct. And I don't know how many of your listeners have ever been to a scrapyard, but there's a machine that's got 4 tires on it, looks like an excavator, and the cab goes way up in the air, and it can reach out anywhere from 40 to 60 feet. So basically, I was going to a Toys R Us store for grown men every day at work because this equipment's so cool. Very expensive too. And Liebherr had a bad name in Houston. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, how are we going to change? How are we going to compete against Caterpillar, Cinnebogan, and Fuchs on these material handle lines? And I just went out cold calling. I was knocking on doors. Hey, can I demo a crane? And Liebherr gave me a lot of room to negotiate, pay for trucking for demos. And at that point I was like, man, I want to wreck shop. I want to own the steel mills, the institutionally owned scrap yards, the ports. And I was working 12, 14-hour days, even on the weekends sometimes. If we were loading a vessel at the Port of Houston, I was out there running out filters, hoses, hydraulic hoses. But we went from 15% market share in 3 years to almost 90%. we were able to flush all the competition out of the market. And they would, one of the fortunate things about Liebherr is when I started changing the tide and really taking over that market share, I was able to take customers and their wives to Europe.
Yeah.
And Liebherr has factories scattered throughout France, Austria, and Germany. And each year I was able to take 5 to 7 couples on these trips to visit the factories. And I became good friends with the president of the earth moving division, who reported directly to Mr. Liebherr. And I mean, we would fly from Houston to Frankfurt and get on the bus and just travel the countryside.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. So the scrap industry is very interesting. A lot of people think it's a dirty business. It's basically operates like a bank. It's you got guys in suits and ties trading metals, trading commodities. And what was interesting about the business was it was a very professional job, even though it was in the scrap industry, and met a lot of wonderful people. And a lot of my customers, even today, I still talk to.
Yeah.
Those individual let's call them owner operators, right? Owner users, independently owned scrap yards, just wonderful people. ISRI's is a great association for the scrap industry. And then they're just some of the best years of my life.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is the scrap industry, and we start breaking down metals and chemistries, and then you get into non-ferrous. It's a deep dive. You know this because you have the metal background, but you start talking about percentage of nickel in stainless steel and the value it has, and
that's where all the value is.
Yeah, chromium and things like that. So I got to be on the equipment sales side of it for years, and the success that I had was not being a great salesperson. It was just basically answering my phone and delivering a wonderful piece of equipment to them and then supporting it. Most of my job was recruiting mechanics, retaining mechanics.
Yeah.
Highly skilled. These are very technical machines. Our joke was, we don't need the Liebherr LH30 to do our taxes. We just need it to move scrap.
Yeah.
And so my success pathway was not, being some dynamic salesperson, but it was answering my phone, taking care of needs, but supporting the product after it was sold.
So I think that segues into, anyone listening to this, this is, I don't know what format Isabel's going to put this under, but, you're in the commercial real estate world now. You're not a street broker.
Right.
But you are doing what exactly we did, just a different product.
Correct.
Right? And,
correct.
And we'll get to all this in a minute, but that was kind of the reasoning for, when we get to that point of, bringing you to Mercer Company.
Sure.
But I remember you were in your truck from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week almost, it seemed like.
70,000 miles a year.
Yeah.
On a diesel truck.
Yep. And 4 cups going, Diet Coke, spit cup, water,
Giotto desk with a laptop, sending emails, driving down 35, 45, going 70 miles an hour on a phone call.
Yeah. I remember going and seeing you at the Liebherr building in Houston, and we buy all these service facilities.
Right.
And, man, the Liebherr building down there is prime time.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's like 50-foot clear in there.
It is.
Something.
It's
not. I mean, they had to have built that to suit. There's no way they found that.
And they just bought another piece of property, and they're going to. I think it's 80,000 square feet.
Yeah.
50, 60 foot clear height. Free span. When there bringing in the cranes too, right?
Oh, it's huge machinery. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool seeing all that stuff. But yeah, you were always out there. Just you could tell you were always in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
just Well, you carry a toolbox with hoses and just consumables with you. So if you showed up on a sales call and they had a grapple hose that was broken, it's like, I got one in my truck.
Yeah, I know. I think you did that before you worked there.
Yeah, right. Pour me a Diet Coke and hand me a crescent wrench.
Yeah. So you're rolling along at Liebherr, and then what happens?
So Liebherr had their management in the United States was very challenging. I didn't agree with a lot of the decisions that were being made above me. I had a direct line to the factories in Europe, and the president at that time was really upset that I had a direct connection with him. He was a control freak. And anyways, we were there to kind of uncover, that store was there to uncover why did Liebherr not have better market share in the United States? And we were put to that challenge.
Yeah.
And basically, there was no purse strings on the purse. Do whatever it takes to dominate the industry.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was they hired a new president. He's from Austria. He works at his background was at the bulldozer factory. I did end up selling a bulldozer to a scrap customer, by the way. They just freaked out. Like, why is he owns a ranch. But anyway, so he comes in and flies into Houston. At this time, there's only one other salesman. We should have 4 total. And says, Tom, you've done a great job on the scrap side. He goes, we want you to sell the earth moving equipment. We want you to do the same thing you've done with the material handlers and the solid tire wheel loaders and the excavators with shear packages on the dirt side. And I was like, wait a minute. I've just given 3 years of my life of literally living here, and you're going to shift products on me? Yeah. He's like, don't worry about it. We'll put you back on a draw. This time I was straight commission. So making good money, working a lot, making good money. Actually making more than the president at the time. And that probably really pissed him off. And they moved me to the earth moving side. And immediately, I'm like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
You're splitting me away from now customers that I'm going to dinner with. I've gone to trips with to Europe. I won't be able to see them anymore. And I put in my 2 weeks notice. And Johann Strobel he was the president of Earth Moving Division. The second, so I put in my 2 weeks notice on a Monday. So I'm actually packing my stuff on this second Friday, and I'm getting ready to leave. And my desk phone rings. And I picked the phone up. And Mr. Strobel, he said, Tom, what are you doing? I said, I'm not selling earth moving equipment. He goes, we want you to stay. And I said, I know. I said, I'm going to miss seeing you. Because I would go hang out with them. Like here, it's like, okay, you're Houston. This is our pet project in the United States. He and I become friends. The product managers for the different factories, we're all hanging out when we go to Europe together. They'd come to the States. And I said, Mr. Strobel, I said, who do I have to report to? And then he mentions our CFO's name. And our CFO at that time, she was married and she was sleeping with another sales guy who was also married. And I thought to myself, I can't work and report to somebody who doesn't share the same values I have. And I didn't say that to Mr. Strobel about what was happening at these conventions and stuff. And I said, Mr. Strobel, and then he tells me what he was going to pay me. And I was like, you're going to pay me $150,000 a year, guaranteed plus commission, when I just accepted a job to work for one of my customers who owns a scrapyard in Brenham, Texas, and he's going to pay me a lot less than that. And I said, with all due respect, I thank you for the offer, but I would not. I just can't. I can't work for the people in the States, the management. So I end up leaving Liebherr, and I go to work for this small little startup scrapyard, Premier Metal Buyers, and it's owned by Mike, Cindy, and Blake Brandon. So it's a mother, father, and son. And I started calling on them when they opened up their 3/4 of an acre scrapyard right next to Bluebell Creameries. When I mean right next to Bluebell in Brenham, I'm talking about the milk trucks passed in front of their yard. So, at the time they had 6-7 employees. When I made that transition, they were probably up to 15 employees. And they say, hey, we really like your approach. We really like your customer service. We want to offer you a job. And then they said, what do we need to pay you? And I was like, oh God, I really want to work for y'all. I was like, I can't live. And Heather was a stay-at-home mom. I was like, I got to make at least $100,000 a year. Isn't that funny? Don't you always love that number, 100,000, right?
Yeah.
But what I was doing, I was like calculating, okay, how much does Isabella cost a month? How much does Thomas cost a month? How much does Natalie? How much does Piers? What does Heather need? What's our food budget? What are we spending on the house and the cars? And that number just came to be like bare minimum for Heather to continue to stay at home and raise Piers. I need 100,000. And they call me back and they say, hey, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So I go to work for them, and it was incredible. I mean, here I am. I'm knocking on doors. We have one roll-off truck at the time, and I'm picking up these tiny accounts. Like when you drop off a roll-off box, you want it to turn once a week, once every 2 weeks full of metal. We had boxes sitting for like months. But it was just perseverance. We kept calling, and I remember landing the NOV Rollagon account. That was huge. They manufacture these off-road trucks in Anderson, Texas, out in the middle of nowhere. And that was a huge step. And every time I would land a new account of size, I would do this victory run through the office, screaming and yelling, we got it, we got it, we got it. And, just that excitement, this small little company in Brenham, Texas, who then grows into a company now of over 200 people, mid-sized company, multiple operations, whether that's curbside recycling in College Station, running a transfer station in Brenham, taking care of all of Texas A&M's recyclables, including cleaning up post-game Kyle Field Stadium, several hundred porta potties for, what's the term I'm looking for?
Construction?
No, when you're tailgating. Tailgating, sorry. Lost it. I told you I didn't watch football.
Yeah.
So, you could have 150,000 people tailgating at a game that has, 60, 70,000 people in it? I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And they have to have somewhere to go to the bathroom. So we had porta potties scattered throughout all these massive parking lots. And so I didn't really get involved in that side of the business. I did oversee large trash accounts. Most of my time was spent with metals. And I had a incredible sales team that I was in charge of. Some of the most genuine people in our lives. And I think Isabella would agree that the impact that Dilbert Baker and Tim Ziblot and the opportunity to work for the Brandons and really just dominate the market because they supported it, right? So we get a new account, no worries. We'd go to the bank. Okay, we need $100,000 to fund the roll-offs to go and cart tippers to go into these accounts. And that line in Tombstone, our favorite movie, Back Your Brothers Play. Yeah. They backed it.
Yeah.
And we went from moving 2,000 to 3,000 tons a month when I first started. And there were some months we would hit 12,000 to 15,000 gross tons. And we had truck drivers, they'd run 20 hours, team drivers, when we would deliver to the mills at night because of traffic. And, but that really, you talk about the analogy of commercial real estate and scrap.
Yeah.
We're selling square footage on the CRE side.
Yeah.
In the scrap industry, we're selling tons.
Right.
Right? It's the same call.
Yeah. And you're brokering it between the person you can buy it off of and the mill.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, everything's going fine. I mean, we're rocking and rolling. And then in November of 2020, I get this phone call from your brother. And
hold on, you missed a whole segment there.
Well, okay, go back.
When you saved my life.
Oh, okay. Oh, my mulligan. Jeff calls it the mulligan. Let's talk about 2016. So the listeners, this will show you how much I love my brothers, Jeremy and Jeff. So I'm blowing and going for Premier Metal Buyers. Everything's great. I get a phone call from Jeremy. It's 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Jeremy calls me up and he goes, and of course, Mercer Metals is Bob Mercer's company that Jeremy took over for Jeremy's dad. Yeah. So Jeremy had a couple of owners and partners. Yeah. That's what partners in the business. And Jeremy's like, man, I'm doing this commercial real estate, but I've got Mercer Metals. I'm still running. Something is not right. Our books aren't right. And he said, I need your help. And I'm like, I'm coming. I'm like, he goes, well, what are you going to do? I was like, look, I'll do anything for you. Yeah. I'll do anything for Jeff. I said, if you need me, I'm coming. And I went and talked to Blake. I said, Blake, if you allow me, I'll keep my phone, my emails. I'll handle the business that we acquired. It doesn't take much time, maybe an hour a day. But my brother Jeremy needs me. And I remember coming up, was Avenue R.
Yeah.
Pulling in the first day, and I walk in, and just a motley crew of people in there. You know, you had all these different languages spoken. We had a guy that was deaf. Yep. Who worked in the shop. We became good friends, even though we communicated through just writing stuff on paper. And I just remember something's off here. And was it Sue? Mm-hmm. Sue, one of Jeremy's partners, was supposed to meet with me, and we had these great conversations leading up to me starting at Mercer Metals. And she's like, "Oh, I'm out of town. I'll be in next week." And then next week turned into basically 6 weeks from my start date. Yeah. And I believe was it Carmina? Was she there at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. I was talking to Carmina, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And she's like, I said, "Let me go talk to the guys in the shop." So I walk out and talk to the guys in the shop, and they're like, "Yeah, Sue sends in a gooseneck trailer on the weekends and loads up a bunch of material, and it leaves." And I was like, "Does Jeremy know about that?" "No, he doesn't know about that." It's like, "Where's it going?" We're like, "We don't know." So basically what was happening is you were buying the material. Mm-hmm. Sue was brokering the material out of our shop and selling it. And it was a disaster. And you can add more context to it because at that point I was just trying to keep morale up in the shop.
Well, yeah, what she was doing was we would produce the part. She would handle all the invoicing.
Okay.
She would invoice it under a different entity name with payment to be sent somewhere else.
Got it.
Send the invoice to the client. Immediately delete the invoice within 30 seconds.
Wow.
So you never saw your intraday AR change.
Got it.
And so it's like, you had 150,000 in AR one day, and then it just poof, 30,000 of it went away.
Right.
So anyways, that all went down like as soon as you got there. And amongst other things, which that's a longer story and honestly not even worth telling.
No.
All the guts of it. But I think what came out of that at the end of it is your ability to go win very large accounts. And that's what saved everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got in with Siemens, and those it.
That was I mean, they basically took over our shop, and they were. We worked with the Siemens division that handled parcels for the United States Postal Service,
and what was interesting about it too, they did a lot of the automation in the warehouses.
Sure,
for the Amazons and the robots and the machinery. We did a lot of those projects too, but a lot of it was the Postal Service,
right?
So,
I remember having to bring in some of your. You call them customers or clients in the scrap I mean, in the precision sheet metal business, and they'd come in and we'd have these guys, man, this is the next Shark Tank idea. And I'm like, look, dude, we don't have the time to make these products. And, but anyways, long story short was I knew, to also having conversations with Jeff, you needed to divest yourself of that business and put all your focus back into commercial real estate. Yeah. That was the goal. And that's what we accomplished.
Well, we accomplished that by you getting that account. It righted the company. Yeah. Cleaned up the books.
Right.
We got that partner out of there. We got her out of there in that whole process.
Sure.
And, it was after you kind of won that account, you kind of just, I remember the day you're like, hey, I'm going to go back to Houston. And you're there about a year.
I was there almost a year exactly.
And I was like, I didn't want you to leave, but I understood. You're like, what else do you want me to do? I got you more work than you can ever handle. And I was like, I just don't want you to leave.
Well, yeah, because of the friendship part of that. But then on the, going back to what I said earlier, you can't think about you have to think about all the families you were feeding there. And you were paying me quite a bit. And at that time, that money it was well spent for Joey, having an engineer on staff, because he had quality control.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know how to run a brake press. I didn't know what plus or minus 5,000ths is.
Yeah.
And at that time, when those orders started coming, I was like, look, take what you're paying me and go hire an engineer, go hire some quality assurance people to make sure that this stuff, when it's being delivered, it's being checked. Yeah. But
that allowed us to build a runway to sell that company and get me out of there.
Right.
Because that was not what I signed up for, was not what I thought I would wanted. It's not what I wanted once I got there.
Well, and the ultimate penalty you paid was not being able to see Trent Reznor live.
Yeah.
Yes. Going back to 9 Inch Nails.
So full circle to that. That was, but what I learned in all that was, actually a guy down the hall from here is a guy who gave me a lot of money to pull me out of that situation. And,
I remember that meeting.
Yeah. MCA, Tom Montgomery guy gave me a lot of money, and Sam, he helped us out a ton. And I learned so much about accounting and all that stuff at that point. And, what I learned out of all that was how not to do something and how to go do things right, I guess,
Sure.
And,
it's the part-time gangster.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
you can't.
I was divided. I was so divided.
Yeah.
Like, it never works.
Right.
And, and I was still real estating through those years, I think I was probably top producer at Mercer Company every year. And I was just burning the candle at both ends, man. It was a tough time.
It was so unhealthy. And thank God you have a rock at home, Tammany.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was we just built our house and moved in not a year earlier when all that went down, and I got to the point where I was like calling bankruptcy attorneys. I was like, I think I'm gonna have to really consider this. And
right.
I figured it out when I having to do that, and paid everybody back. But that was very critical in that. And then to your point, I just remember you're like, what else do you want me to do? Go sell more?
And I was like, we can't.
You can't even handle
loaded.
it. Yeah, the shop was just inundated, and so
right.
It was for me, it was just I didn't want you to leave.
No,
I didn't care about more work.
Right,
just, I wanted to hang out.
But we Jeff and I talked about it. We needed you to divest yourself of that business so you could focus on. Really, what was providing for your family was commercial real estate, not a company that was like a boat anchor.
Yeah,
and this is all about long-term mental health, quality of life, being there for your wife and your kids.
Yeah,
and those are conversations Jeff and I would have about how do we get Jeremy away from Mercer Metals and and back into real estate full time. And ultimately, it was the concern about you. Yeah. Forget the business.
Yeah. No, I know. And that's what I remember. There was like some point of me like feeling bad that I was going to get rid of the family business or whatever. And And then I was just like, I don't give a shit anymore, man. I was so done.
Yeah.
I was so done. But, what I learned was how to have everything so tight so that when you sell something, you can get the most value for it. And that's what we do here now is we buy things that are messy, tighten the shit out of them, and then we can sell it. Because we can just go point to every little thing that happened. There's no question on anything. And so it's a lesson that I learned out of that. And I was meeting with some guys the other day that I know that are in a very similar situation with a company they bought and hired someone to run it. Now they're in a massive lawsuit with this person, and this person was their friend, and all these things. And I was sitting there talking to him, and I was like, I know exactly where you're at. And all I can tell you is this too shall pass. You will get out of this. And you'll probably make a ton of money afterwards. Because you're going to fail so hard at this. And, that's when I sold Mercer Metals, we sold for a great price, but I didn't walk with a dime. Because I had to pay all this debt off. And, but I learned how to do it. I learned how to, I took a loan. I learned how to make loans. We make a ton of loans now here, and so it just taught me how to evaluate things, how to evaluate people. Because man, I had a real big character miss with that partner, and and it also taught me I don't want business partners. There's the only partner in Matador is Tammany, and there's other ways to incentivize people through ownership or phantom ownership, but there's no one that I'm going to have a divorce with ever again. And it was just...
well, it's some of the attributes of the most successful people that I have dealt with is the owner signs every check. And I can't tell you how many times that story has repeated itself to the people that are truly successful, wealthy. They still look at every single check, before they sign it. And what's this cost? What are we doing here? And it's important that those checks and balances are there, and the person leading the company takes that time to make sure that you could have one department that's doing everything and succeeding, and then you could have some bad apples. So the other takeaway for you is this. I'm sure there's very few brokers that have run a business, know what it is to hire, especially a business like in the area sector we're in, the Class B, Class C, commercial warehouse space. When you're looking at that brake press and like, okay, this machine shop wants to move because their lease is too expensive. Well, what's their rigging cost to get that equipment to this new building? You feel that. And you know that, and you can have a conversation with them about that.
And it's not only the cost to rig it and move it, it's the cost to come in and rebalance it once you set it.
And all the electrical.
It's the cost to cut the concrete out to set it. If you're having a precision brake press, you can't have any vibration come through. Because if you're doing precision, you can't be off 1,000th of an inch. And a vibration, someone drops something on the ground. Knocks that brake press off.
That's it.
And it... that was a very big selling point for me as a broker is that I had lived those experiences that, hey man, I've done it. I've made payroll. That's ultimately the test. I think if you've ever had to put in cash to make payroll, which I've had to do, that's owning a business. And, but that was a very interesting time and a time that, you came up and saved my ass, so that was, but it was fun too.
It was
a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing it.
Kids all hanging out and just living 10 minutes from you. Driving that Ford Fusion. That you bought me. I had to do a hand plant to stand up out of it. Heather's like, as soon as you can get out of that car, get a pickup truck. She goes, you look ridiculous getting out of that car. It
stuck with your family though, because everybody ended up having a Ford Fusion.
It's a great car. I just don't fit in it. So then after that, I moved back. I go back to Brenham, and Blake hires me back. Essentially, I never really completely left because I was still answering emails and stuff. And then in 2020, I may be off. Sometimes my recollection of years is difficult. But it was 2020.
It was the fall of 2020.
The fall of 2020.
Come up
2021. Yeah.
We went to Barrett's football game.
Oh, that's right. When they played Salina in the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. We went to his football game, and then you came back to my house, and we went in the studio, and we ambushed you.
Well, and again, this was your idea, right?
Well,
get Tom up here.
It was
it
was Jeff's idea.
Okay,
and he came to me, and I think he came to me that morning.
Yeah,
he was like, "Hey, what do you think about Tom being our sales manager?"
Right.
I go, "That's fucking genius."
Yeah.
I was like, "Dude, that guy fucking it doesn't." I was like, I go, if you want people to just there's an energy that you bring,
sure,
that you can't. I remember when you worked at Mercer Metals, we did the DISC personality test, and you were the I don't remember which one, but I remember it was like orange color. But you're like the party,
okay?
Like, you're the guy that has to have a party,
okay,
rallying everybody up.
Right,
and I was like, and I knew Jeff didn't really want to. He was at a different time in his life,
sure,
and he was, they were moving to Florida and all these things, and I think, I think Jeff had trained guys for a long time,
sure,
and you didn't have the background in commercial real estate, but you had the background in sales and building relationships,
sure,
which is what this business is about. And I was like, dude, Tom can come in and, he can, back to Keith Burns, he can sell ice to an Eskimo, but then he'll cook him some soup and make him feel really good about it.
There you go. Let's get something warm in your belly.
Yeah. So that was, he's like, well, let's just do it today. I was like, okay, let's talk to him about it.
So that's what happened. And
I just remember sitting in the studio and Jeff said that to you, and you were like stunned.
Yeah. It's like, what? I have to learn something new?
Yeah.
How many acronyms do you have in this industry? Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. It's like drinking out of a fire hydrant.